killings, disappearances connected with the riots that occurred in Kenya in the months of June and July this year. And Chair, what happened in Kenya in June and July is unprecedented. We have had a long history of democratic expression, freedoms of association, assembly, political opinions in a multi-party democratic environment. But what happened in our country in June and July this year is unprecedented. For the first time, we came short of burning the country and destroying the institutions of our democracy, including the Parliament of Kenya. We also had an attempt to ban and violate other protected areas. The Supreme Court was attacked, including the chambers of the Chief Justice, meaning the judiciary was also targeted. And those who took advantage of that expression of democratic opinion to commit crime also and intended to access State House and take it over unconstitutionally. So that is the context in which I respond to this statement, Mr. Chair. In the process of those unprecedented demonstrations, acts of violence and extensive destruction of public property and private property, I have been asked to say how many people were arrested during that period. 1,208. Number two, I've been asked to state during those June, July riots, how many people lost their lives? 42. Thirdly, I have been asked to give an account of any unaccounted or unidentified bodies which could be in public mortuaries arising out of those unprecedented events of June and July 2024. 2. The number is 2. And finally, I have been asked to inform this committee, and by extension Parliament, how many people were reported missing during the June-July violent riots across the country. 132. And therefore, other than those statistics, the second part of that request for statement by the member for Kenya was to, I think more or less I've answered everything, but I think there is one part there which says, actually I've answered everything. Part 1 to 4, I submit. If my remarks appear dismissive of or arrogant to the committee, I want to apologize. That's the least of my objectives. Secondly, the issue of what the minister does, what the IG does, it was not to remove responsibility of any type from the minister was to explain we have a constitution which creates independent offices and independent institutions, including parliament. And therefore, I just wanted to say that you don't expect the minister to micromanage the IG on operational issues, but if the information on operational issues is requested, I can get it from the IG. That was the point, strictly. But I cannot keep on telling him, deploy here, give this kind of firearm to this officer. Those are operational issues, and the Constitution gives him that leeway. Thirdly, the IG was in northern Kenya last week, the acting IG that time, to map out that area extensively, because we have real challenges there. Myself, have been there overtly and covertly many times, so I have a fair understanding. I may not have the details that the Honourable Member for Fafi has, because that is his constituency. I may not have all the details, but I have a fair understanding, general understanding of the area, the needs, and so forth and so on. And I want to agree with the member and those who have spoken also in support that Fafi, Ijara is one of the neediest areas we have at the moment. We've had other needy areas where the threat levels have significantly going down, and I've already said that area is where we are remaining with a great challenge among a few other areas. For example, a year ago, Boni, south of Ijara, Boni, Lamu, was a big headache. But right now, after we managed to put in a bit of operational and policy decisions, the place now is stable. I just wanted to assure the member and the colleagues team from that area that we are putting all efforts right now to make sure that we seal the gaps there. Around deployment, I agree. The NPR allocations for northern Kenya generally are quite small. There was a recommendation, for example, for Fafi for 250. But you see, that's a recommendation. It's number 2, it is subject to availability of resources. And number 3, what perhaps we could do is to expedite that process, which I want to undertake on behalf of the National Police Service. But what I may not support or agree with is the suggestion by the Honourable Member for Laikipia North that we do away with training. We cannot recruit MPRs and not train and equip them. Unless I didn't understand, I heard as if the member said she doesn't see the need of training.
I said I don't dispute.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I apologize. It's my mistake. So we will expedite. So in the next 14 days, we are going to review the situation there. Out of the need of 250, we may not have the resources to implement the 250 at once, and therefore we can start with 100 or so, but see how that pans out, and maybe another month or 2, we can incrementally meet the demand. Even in the places where we have given a commitment for NPR, some of them have never been honored because of resource issues. For Isiolo, Wajir, I'm sure the member for Wajir is here, and so many other places. Even where we have given, we have not given the full complement. But I admit, I think that area, and perhaps that is the reason why that is the area now remaining, giving us a security headache, requires expedited focus, and I want to commit to the member and to the committee that in the next 14 days we will at least start with the deployment of about 100, expedite and look for resources for their training so that they can help us even as we meet the full need for that area.
Just for record, Waziri, for clarity, so that probably we don't go back again. That is Jara and Fafi.
We can do 100 for a start.
Yes.
Because I also know we are constrained for budget. But given the need there, we need to do that. And then secondly,
and kindly,
on vehicles.
As we do, Waziri, the area where the 16 were discharged,
Yes.
Because, this is a member who has been actually, we have been in contact for the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
I remember even at the time we had the team led by Kenan of Northeastern team.
Yeah.
Where he actually was appointed there.
Local leaders and the police really have to work with the local leaders to assess where the most need should be, and I think there's no problem with assuring that. With regard to vehicles, about half of the police stations in Kenya do not have vehicles. Slightly, actually more than 50%. Because of resource issues. So we are really in a very delicate situation. Between the police and GAO, we need 5,200 vehicles. We just managed to get 1,000, which we have purchased, and they should be with us in about a month's time. And they have taken, Treasury took us rounds from as early as May. We had, and of course for good reasons, because they also didn't have the resources. So we negotiated downwards until we got the 1,000. What I can promise is that we'll prioritize the most needed stations, including the stations from the members area. And I know many members here also have many police stations that don't have cars, the OCSs don't have AIE, and so forth and so on. The police equipment modernization program is what we want to use. And now that we have basic heavy hardware. And I think for the second and third year, we can invest more of our own usual security operations budget to take care of police vehicles, as opposed ordinary police vehicles or APCs for places like Ijara and Fafi. And then finally, I think, yes, that's it. The other things I remain guided on how to answer them, because some of them were not part of the statement. I may not have all the information on my fingertips.
By either Al-Shabaab or suspected government agency. I think that was the last question.
I think that was the last question, but I got the CS, he said he doesn't have those numbers. The reason I raised that question is to see the grimness of the situation. That my people are in fear. Either they're abducted by the government or by Al-Shabaab.
No, government does not abduct people, Chair. Even the word abduction, what we refer to in security is missing persons reports. That is the official legal thing, because somebody comes and says, my son, my uncle, my neighbor was taken by unknown people. It's a missing person report. And that information, I can also supply it within 24 hours, because there must be an OB. But, if the OB numbers and the number of people who have reported missing are needed, I can supply it within the next 24 hours as well. Is it for Fafi or for the entire?
No, it was Fafi. Just for Fafi.
Okay.
Thank you,
So you can combine together with the number, the cholo.
Very complex and highly sensitive. That notwithstanding, this is the 16th day an elected leader is missing. We all understand, Waziri, Kenya is a member, a responsible member of the international community. And over the years, we have prided ourselves as a security hub, as a conferencing hub, as leading everything. But we are forgetting that in this era, we have social media as one of the emerging arms of government. And this is the reality. We have lived with the 3 traditional arms. The first arm, you may not agree because you are a member of the executive, is parliament, the legislature. The executive and the judiciary. Right now, we have the social media effect, we have the NGO community, and many other emerging arms of government. What I really don't understand is notwithstanding the definitional issue. In my mind, as a leader who has been around, I don't know that I have your attention, sorry. in my mind, as a leader who has been around, who's familiar with the modus operandi, even modus vivendi of our security agencies, which you had. You are the civilian face of the Homeland Security. When such a high profile, me I'm persuaded it's abduction, and it can have two faces. When we have put all these efforts to project Kenya, to promote Kenya, locally, regionally, internationally, and yet, and even our forces are there in Haiti. Why is Haiti there in that state? Because of the effects of Goonism and gangsters and everything else that the administration then failed to act on. Is it what has happened in Kenya right now? A step towards that direction. Because a leader has been abducted, a leader is missing, to use the police word. A leader cannot be accounted for, yet to date, other than the mere OP acknowledgement in Makadara police station, we are yet to see a high-level response from the security agencies. That compounds the challenge in this era, Waziri, of constitutional accountability, adherence to the rule of law, and accountability. You have used the word constitutional accountability. By now, we expected that every day we'll be getting progress report. I do not want to downplay the comment that you made, that you're making some progress and therefore you reach your president, because we also understand that sometimes some of these things require a lot of delicate handling. But what compounds, Waziri, put yourself in the shoes of the voters of that elected representative, the family, the relatives, his representative who is talking to you. No statement, nothing, business as usual, nothing is happening. So Waziri, I want to give you lead questions, which you also understand. On 6 August, this particular state officer, leader, was summoned by the County Security Committee over here. For whatever reason, I learned this reason. And they have every right to interact with everybody. The same person, on 10th September, the entire Homeland Security heads were also in Wajir. On 11th September, the gentleman traveled to Nairobi. On 13th, he went missing. He was abducted. The venue, the location, is as a result of our collective efforts that we have CCTVs everywhere. This honorable member called for the service of an Uber driver. He has made a statement, he has made an affirmation on, under, oath, which I also tabled through the chairman before the House. So Waziri, and I know you are a lawyer, an astute lawyer, criminal responsibility is individual. I do not want to delve into that. But equally, we must also be accountable to the due process of law. That due process of law is what we are questioning. I want to believe with you. And I will say this without fear, without favor, without any contribution, without an iota of doubt. And you know I'm an all-seasoned, experienced legislator and I've been around. If this particular leader has committed any crime, he's supposed to be before a court of law, not in detention, not in the name of abduction. What you have done, the achievements that you have made over the last 2 years as the substantive CS internal security, for those of us who have been around, is commendable. But some of these silly actions, you can call them rowdy officers, overzealous officers, you can call them of lack of whatever name that you call them, completely destroys that mega that big image that you have been trying to build. And I am also alive to the sensitivity and the challenge that sometimes you go through. So I want to plead with you as we wait for that comprehensive response. If it was in other jurisdictions, you know it. By now, an elected minister in this seat, some people will have taken responsibility, personal responsibility. It has two aspects. Assume even in the worst case scenario, which is not in this case, that he has been abducted by criminal elements. Do you want to say that Kenya is a banana republic? Why are these criminal elements who have been abducting people, and so many people have been released, why are they not being taken into court? Waziri, you understand this. Me and you have gone to the same university. You understand this. That is not one of the tenets that we have been taught. It is not. It's completely outside that. Can this... You know, by now I think you are familiar with our culture. I have the entire community in Nairobi. So you can also imagine the burden. The entire community, because their leader is missing. I have to recharge my telephones every second, every minute, because of the calls. I have nothing to say. In fact, the assumption is, because I'm an experienced legislator and I've been around, I can talk to all of you and say, yes, I've talked to all of you. Everybody's in denial. What message will I say? So I want to plead with you. Whoever is holding this guy, and they know where they are, and please, wherever you are, you know yourselves. Release this MCA.
That's okay.
Allow me, Chairman, this.
Yeah.
Release this MCA. If you have evidence enough that can warrant him, just like we have alluded, because all of us are accountable to the rule of law. That's what separates us. Take him to court. Thank you, Waziri.
Okay, kindly members, I want to guide at this.
I'm not in the mood. Not just because I want it, because an MCA, an elected leader from my county, has been missing for the past 15 days. Today being 16th day. You mentioned you are not aware of the case. There is a communication from your office that we got through the chair on 24th that indeed the matter is under investigation. It's now 2 days since we got that investigation. And as a professor of law, the whole time you've been educating us on law, on how to safeguard the Constitution. From where I sit, I feel like we are applying the law, or we are implementing the Constitution selectively. When an elected leader is missing for the 16th day, don't you think he has all the rights to live? Don't you think as an elected member of parliament, he needs to be, he needs to be implementing and, doing the work he was elected for? That is something as a lawyer I want to understand. Two, when Waziri, you said you don't want us to do abductions. Without an iota of doubt, I want to categorically say the government of Kenya is abducting the citizens of this country. Why I say that?
Kindly. You can only say that if you can substantiate that.
I'm going there, Chair.
Kindly, you know the procedures.
Okay.
So withdraw that one, and you are very smart in this letter.
As I withdraw, Chair, let me just finish the statement. I say that because this honorable member, Mr. Waziri, got a summon from the security agencies. 2 days later, he's abducted. Any person who thinks will add, the tabulations that indeed it's the security agencies. If indeed it's not the security agencies, Mr. Waziri, how hard is it for the security agencies to come and say we don't have this gentleman, Mr. Waziri? My other question is, if an elected member of parliament can be abducted, how safe are we as the citizens? Personally, because of the things I've been doing and going through the meetings in search of the honorable member, I feel threatened, to be honest. I don't know whether I'm safe as an elected member of parliament because of the things and the meetings we go. Honorable Kenan mentioned how my community works. The entire county is in Nairobi. It's expensive for us to maintain them. We don't sleep in our houses, Mr. Waziri. We are running from one place to another. At one point, if I take you to my house, more than 50 people are in the house because of the elected member. Mr. Waziri, I feel very, miserable that the people who elected me right now, who feel I can bring the elected MCA by just advocating and talking in parliament, that nothing can be heard, nothing can be done. Mr. Waziri, to be honest, I feel like we are in a failed state. When you take an elected member, he's a human being, he can do anything. Why do we have the courts? Why do we have the constitution? You are a professor of law, Mr. Waziri. We are not happy from where we sit, even as a country, from Ojia, Mr. Waziri. Waziri, lastly, you said you initially started by condoning the extrajudicial killing and abductions. We want, when you say something, we mean it as a country. At the end of the day, the people we elected us are the people we work for. We will not support if they have done something wrong, Waziri. The entire Wajir country, from all the 6 constituencies today, are all out in demonstrating in the streets of Wajir, besides the government refusing to give them permit. We will not allow, Mr. Waziri. We will not allow our elected members to be disappearing. Then there's no need of us being elected in the first place. We rather stay home. We rather have a lawless country, Mr. Waziri. You are the Waziri I respect. I have a lot of regards for you. We want our honorable member back. We want our son back. We are not asking for much. He is in the hands of the security agencies. I don't know how to put more than that.
Thank you, Honorable Fatima. I think you...
Chairperson, just for the one aspect by the member for Wajir County, I didn't say I'm not aware of the case. I said I'm aware of the case. 2, an advance copy of a response was sent on this matter and on the matter that we began with first. On both those statements, I was dissatisfied, and I directed my team to pull those 2 down, and they contacted the committee because I had to amend the one that we disposed of in the first one on abductions by the member for Kenya and killings and how many people lost their lives during the riots and in June and July. That one, at least, I was able to improve it again, but not to the full extent, because I discovered the particularization of deaths had gone up to deceased number 30. Yet we need to account for 42 deaths, and that's why I asked for 24 hours to bring a more comprehensive report. And therefore, the advance response that had been submitted, I stood it down because I was dissatisfied, and I asked for more information this morning. I have actually received some additional information which I am still not satisfied with. Because as we said, security matters are grave, they are not casual, they are not things you just make pronouncements and go. They have constitutional consequences. And therefore, Chair, I am aware that the member of the County Assembly for Dela, Mr. Yusuf, the Honorable Yusuf Hussain, has been reported missing for the last 16 days. I'm aware. And I know how grave that is to the constituents, the family, and to Kenya as a whole. Chair, it is also my very humble view that we do not have a failed state, as was alleged by the member for Wajir. What we have is imperfect institutions, which we are working on as a country. I've been in office now long enough to study and to follow events of so many countries around the world, security events. And I'm not trying to downplay this matter, I'm just saying that every country in the world, including the most sophisticated country, has issues which stick out as challenges and within the system. So we have an imperfect institutional system which we are working on, and that's underscores why the police reform and the security reform agenda that the other day the president launched, which has a huge reform package, including for the police and how they operate. We will follow through that, and I personally will follow through that to ensure that the imperfections we have do not cause us the kind of harm we are discussing here. That having been said, the institutions are imperfect and work in progress. I also want to say we have 110,000 police officers in this country, out of which under 15,000 are involved in sensitive response to organized crime, terrorism, trade in drugs and trafficking of persons, poaching and ivory trade, organized crime like banditry and the rest, and drugs and so forth. Out of the police complement of 110,000, I speak from experience. We have some good officers in the service. However, I also speak with the same experience. We could have, and indeed we have, bad officers in the service. Otherwise, we cannot be talking about imperfections in our institutions. Among those that are involved in responding to serious existential threats to our country's security, 99% of them are extremely unlikely to misuse that power. And I'm speaking again from experience. I have been to every corner of this country, the most dangerous locations of our soil. I have been there. I have seen what they do, what they go through. I have seen young men, barely in their mid-50s, but very specially trained. They have lost life, they have lost limb as they fight terrorists and other sophisticated criminals, bandits, etc. So my thinking, and even as we handle this and a few other outstanding matters we have, remember the northern part of our country, we continue to work on the security there because for many years, for as long as Kenya has existed, we've had all these challenges. They have not started last year or this year. There were some foreigners also who were abducted in that general area of Marsabit. And we are on the trail. A bit complicated, a bit sensitive, but we're on the trail to also pursue, just as we are on the trail of this matter, because whether the person is arrested by whoever, first of all, if it is an arrest, the person will be presented to a court of law. That's what the law says. For terrorism and other sophisticated crimes, if you read the Prevention of Terrorism Act, there is a bit of leeway to allow special processing, which is from the Constitution itself, that has exceptions and derogations on certain automatic rights to deal with certain public security, public interest matters. That's why, for example, you see, like in the Shakahola suspects, we held that suspect without charging him for 1 year plus. You cannot do that for another suspect. Some other crimes, you cannot hold them even for more than 24 hours. You'll have problems in the court. So what we are saying, and this is my very humble request to you, Chair, and the committee, I would want to respond on this matter in a more comprehensive manner. Again, in the spirit of the urgency of the matter, I can submit to the committee what I require, the report, I mean the statement on where we are on this missing person whom we don't know. We don't know who took him. I know my brother here said that he knows, or I know who has this person. I don't. I'm a patriotic Kenyan. I love Kenya with the whole of my heart, and beyond this job, I will not be part of any scheme to harm an innocent Kenyan and present them to grave danger or even risk their lives. So I actually don't know who has these people, but whoever it is, whether criminal gangs, whether law enforcement agencies acting outside their mandates, we will get to the bottom of it. Therefore, in the same 24-hour cycle, as I submit the supplementary information, I'll also submit what I will have signed off as the status of this matter. And then, Chair, you can guide how you communicate that to the committee. And if the committee also requires me again back, I will be more than happy to comply with the request to come back for a verbal interaction on that matter. I submit, and I'm very sorry for what has happened to the leader and the other cases that we are tracking of people just getting lost, and it should not happen. But please bear with us, we are trying our best. We just have an imperfect system, and many countries around the world, maybe not the same measure, but they still have some imperfections they are working on. And I want to assure Kenya, I will not be the minister for Kenya's security. We will sit down and plan how the people of Kenya can get harmed by anybody. It is wrong, it is illegal, it is sacrilegious, and it undermines our democracy completely. We have no business sitting here if we could even countenance for a moment that someone who is innocent or someone who needs to be arrested and taken to court is being held somewhere for fun. Whatever that fun is, it is evil, it's unacceptable. So in 24 hours, I will sign off a statement which can go to the records. I request to withdraw the advance copy that was signed, and in 24 hours, I will send a signed copy which can be subject to further interrogation. I submit.